All right, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for staying with us. I think we've had a fantastic summit so far, right? So much content. We've talked about how companies should be shifting from capital to compact, how to embed corporate purpose within the business, and how that drives performance. And I think these are just not just slogans, right? We're talking about real examples, actionable examples and ideas. And I think we're on the cusp of a real movement here. I mean, just look around. You've got, together with people in the room and the ones online, is hundreds of business leaders, all sitting together, willing to embrace corporate purpose, right? Each of you, obviously, on your own journey, on your own path, but everyone has a clear sense of, I think, what is right and good and what is required. So now we've come to the third and last panel discussion of the day, and we're going to talk about acceleration of corporate purpose within our respective ecosystems, right? How can we influence and lead others in this journey of corporate purpose? How can we move our partners and suppliers or other players within the ecosystem, right? And we are privileged to have here with us today two giants from the corporate world, leaders who, well, really walk the corporate purpose talk. Right, we were actually meant to have four of us on stage. I think it was mentioned that Ms. Deborah Ho, who's the regional head of Southeast Asian business for BlackRock and country head of BlackRock Singapore, she had to pull out early this morning, she told us. And we will, of course, miss her because it would have been great, in fact, fabulous to hear from her. But the show must go on. So give me a few minutes now to introduce in more detail our two panelists. First, of course, Panote, sitting on the right, or my right, is the Group CEO of Frasers Property Limited. He previously held the position of Senior Executive Vice President of Strategic Planning at TCC Holding Company, where he led TCC Group's real estate development business in Thailand. And Panote is a board member of several listed companies, including Thai Bev, Golden Land Property Development, and he's also a board director on National Gallery, and sits on the board of trustees of Singapore Management University. And center stage here is TC, Tian Chong. He's the Managing Director, Greater Asia at HP, responsible for business in the region, including go-to-market strategies, sales and marketing across PCs, printers, digital press, 3D printing, and managed services. And that's across both commercial and consumer segments. Prior to his current role, TC was president of HP's Asia Pacific and Japan operations. So he has more than 30 years experience at HP, and he's held key leadership roles in region and country management, product category management, sales, finance, services, and support, as well as marketing. So huge experience there that we can learn from. I myself am I'm the CEO of Quantage Capital and director of Quantage Foundation. But my job here today is fairly simple. I'm just trying to get the best out of these two brilliant speakers here today. And with that, I'm going to jump right into it, okay? With the easy stuff first, right? I noticed there was a question earlier posed to the previous sort of panel, and I thought maybe we should ask from our panelists a very simple thing, right? And firstly, I'd like to hear from each of you how you would describe your own sort of corporate purpose statement, right? What does your company do to make a difference to humanity or contribute to the larger good? What is your North Star? Panote, if you don't mind, could you start?
Thank you, Suhaimi. And thank you, NPPC as well, to be able to arrange such a like mind to come together and share the experience. It's been very energizing. To the questions, I would say Frasers is lucky to play a good small part of what we do. And in line to the purpose of what we said, we're here to inspire experience and creating place for good. And the view of that base ourselves through the way we are as a real estate developer and operator as well. I said very clearly to where we are, we want to improve quality of life. We want to be the part of where we evolve and develop, our real estate asset. And more to that, in what already a good base of how we have been in the presence of creating homes, creating commercial space, hospitality, and asset class like industrial portfolio as well. It's very diversified portfolio. So what we do, we're looking at very much so the integration and very much so of the topic of ecosystem as well. And so the bigger part of us is definitely how do we see to improve quality of life? How do we see to create long-term sustainability to our real estate asset? And that's mean the way we use our real estate has to be fully captured. And that's where we define ourselves as understanding in depth of real estate life cycle. And I think when we talk about life come full circle, and what you do today would mean very much so if you set out your goals, it always come around. So those probably the general part of my role first.
Okay, TC.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. And it's really great to be with Kun Panote on the same panel. We've actually shared some ideas before as well, so it's really good timing. Well, first of all, HP as a company, we are kind of a brand which was a pioneer of Silicon Valley. We were founded by our founders, Bill and Dave, in 1939, and close to 85 years old. And I'll say that in regards to corporate purpose, the first thing I'll say is that for my company, really, corporate purpose started out in our DNA. When Bill and Dave founded the company, we had the HP Way, which essentially centers on building technology for advancement of society. And over time, that kind of morphed into a corporate purpose for us, which today centers around 3 pillars. There is a pillar around climate action. There's a pillar around human rights, diversity, equity, inclusion type topics. And then the third pillar, because we are a tech company, we work on things like digital equity. How do we use technology to help better societies around the 3 pillars? And for us, really, we're going to discuss a whole bunch more, but essentially our North Star is to be the most just and sustainable technology company by 2030. Because of the scale of our business, we know that we can influence this in a big way. And for me, personally, like what I heard from the previous panelists and my observation is that corporate purpose, when it's central to the business, is really important because everything has been said around, one, it really helps to attract talents, and it's a big deal. I think Samir Singh said that earlier, but truly, with the millennials and the Gen Zs, being able to identify with them, attract the talent, it does matter. And the other thing is about being able to do good and grow, right? For us, HP as a company, we are close to $65 billion in size. In 2021, we were able to associate our efforts in sustainability to bringing us accretive $3.5 billion of business in that year, right? So we know that our choice points over here, whatever we will discuss shortly, do matter.
Wow, fantastic. So improving lives and advancement of society, those are big things. I'm going to ask TC if you could elaborate a little more. I know you mentioned that it's always been in your DNA, but there's been this great sort of momentum and build up towards expectations on corporate purpose, ESG, all sorts of related things. So my question is, could you give us some more concrete examples, perhaps, of what you've done differently, right, in pursuit of corporate purpose, particularly in the last few years?
Right. So this is the interesting discussion. I thought about what to share for this topic. So maybe I'll highlight a few things which I think will be interesting for everyone. So for HP, we have like 55,000 full-time employees, and we operate in more than 170 countries around the world. We ship 3 devices every second from somewhere in the world. So we know that how we source, how we design, how we manufacture, how we go to market, take it back for recycling, every step of the value chain, there are choice points that we will have some impact on the 3 pillars that I spoke about. So the 2 areas where we've done things a little differently, maybe I'll mention, and then if there's time, in particular, one of the areas I think in terms of the ecosystem, we can share more, is this, right? So the first one is in manufacturing. Now, in Singapore, we have been here for more than 53 years in Singapore. And Singapore is a really big site for HP. We have R&D, manufacturing, global control towers for some functions, so on and so forth. But in the manufacturing space, we've been manufacturing here for more than 3 decades. And in the last 6 years, we pivoted our print head we have global manufacturing here for print heads that go into our inkjets, HP inkjet printers globally. We pivoted from a very manual factory to a smart factory. And right now in Depot Road, on our new campus there, our factory that we have, which Kun Panote visited as well, I'm proud to say, we actually had the World Economic Forum gave us the accolade of being a global lighthouse network a year plus ago. That means that we are leading practitioner of fourth industrial revolution technology in the factory. We employ robotics, AI, big data, data analytics, and our own 3D printing to basically combine and manufacture. And the reason why I'm saying this different is because of this. We are able to improve productivity by more than 70%, lower cost by more than 20%, but more importantly, do things in a much more sustainable way. Because of this smart factory, we are now able to reduce wastage, cut down shipping, reskill our workforce, recycle a lot of things, etc., etc. And we employ solar panels and recycle water for some wafer fabs in there, and it's having a major impact. So that's one area. The second area I'll share is how of HP's $65 billion business globally, 85% of it goes through our channel partners. And we sell to all segments, from consumer to the commercial side. So take Singapore, for example. In consumer, we sell through the likes of Challenger. And then there are other partners on the commercial side. Now, what we've done on the partner side is enroll many of them to join us in a program that we launched called Amplify Impact, which basically we'll spend time maybe later talking about it, how HP has invested to do an assessment, training, and provide tools for them to make a pledge and then build a sustainable plan. And we're able to shift incentives and motivate many of our HP's more than 200,000 partners around the world to be more sustainable. So maybe later I'll amplify more around that.
Thank you. Panote, on to you. So could you elaborate a little bit more on what has changed, right, in the recent years as you have more strongly embraced corporate purpose?
I would have viewed the tracks to the way I have to be able to put myself and the team through the change that we have to make and also we learn from each other. Being a multi-geographics real estate company, we invest in more than 22 countries. We now grow from being, the other part I want to mention is how, we are proud to be Singapore listed company, and because of the sense of roots, we've grown from this year, F&N is 140 years old. And Frasers is a spin-off of a very good base company. Our first commercial building that grew together in the last 2.5 decades with HP as a key tenant in Alexandra Techno Park. That site was evolved out of the old brewery and become one of the first business park in Singapore. And it helped evolve the economy. It's a part of what I said, the sense of truth of how it's built from before us and what do we do forward. With the move to the new campus allow us to re-enhance the park as well and reinvent the park into the new decade. And we are now, through the COVID years, we think a lot about future of work, about how we anticipate the change of work environments. The part of us, we grown through acquisition. So the way we need to find a way to integrate, find a way to localize, and create the right synergy and create a purpose that allow us to align is very important. And that action has allowed us to aggregate view over achievable target as well. We are growing from in 2014 when we list at 13 billion in AUM. Today we are managing 42 billion of assets across the market through Singapore, Australia, UK, Europe, Thailand, Vietnam, and China. So the sense of root, the sense of belonging to where we are is very important, because when we build real estate, we cannot move it. It's there to stay. So it has to be very meaningful to our people, to our planet, and also to our societies. So those were definitely the pillar of what we do, and we take that action very seriously.
Panote, I'm going to ask a little more probing question.
Sure.
I think you've spoken about how you've grown through acquisitions. You've decided on which properties to sort of bet on. What has changed really in terms of what you focus on? So I mean, presumably corporate purpose and your focus areas have now defined what you would acquire, wouldn't acquire, the properties that would form a core part of your portfolio. So what are the bits that you now don't touch or say, I don't want to do this type of business or this type of property? So how has that changed?
So the first 3 years of listing has been a growth trajectory. We've grown over 15% a year. And through the set of times which set back about 5 years ago, we set course of consolidation, set course of sustainability goal. We are definitely can define ourselves as one of the first Singapore listed that define the first achieve target of net zero carbon by 2050. And the key to that is also to start to align our purpose to the action. And to making sure as a science-based solution as well to all our real estate assets. We actually hitting the challenge over the real estate that's already developed. We have set already a good leading milestone towards some of the new development that we do. The new reinvent of us through carbon negative neighborhood mall in Melbourne. Burwood Brickwork was the first carbon negative that certified by Living Building Challenge and set the goals to a very ambitious and we have achieved it as well. In Thailand, we are the first well standard building in Thailand, and that was set before COVID, and it came across when we look at the flight of quality and sustainability. The system that was thought out to be a future need become a need within the COVID. Because of the world standard put the level of quality of air. You put UV light within the air duct. You measure oxygen in the building. You're looking at livable. So place making, water quality. So all of those has given us, the outcome that came even earlier than what we expect. We built what the future should be, and sometimes it come earlier, sometimes it come later. But as if we set the goal right, our view, it will eventually come.
Okay, fantastic. I love it. So we've heard their sort of corporate purpose statements. You've got some real life examples, smart factories, net zero carbon sort of buildings. But I think I want to ask how hard it's been, because these are great successes, right? Congratulations on them. But I'm sure there have been other instances where you've faced some difficulty, right? And I ask this because it just can't be plain sailing for people to embrace corporate purpose, right? As it is, it's tough to do business. You've got pandemics, you've got supply chain disruptions, inflation, recession, hopefully not. But these are headwinds and obstacles, right, to not just business, but wanting to do good, right, towards pursuing corporate purpose. So the question is, how have you dealt with these challenges, right? And has it slowed down shifts in your business approach? Has it caused you to rethink, pivot, or even suspend initiatives? TC first.
All right, it's a really big question. And I think my observation and the way I think about it, there are some soft things and some hard things that we do in relation to corporate purpose. Maybe I'll start with the softer, intangible things that I feel are important. I think the first thing is companies first need to orientate themselves and have the right mindset about this. I think there are many different ways to say it, but I think earlier the discussion in the previous panel was that you cannot look at it as with short-term ROI, return on investment lenses, right? Because corporate purpose is a longer, medium to much longer-term objective behind it. The mentality needs to be like a marathon runner, right? Where it's the long road, and you need to account for it, plan for it, and it's not a short-term journey with a short sprint with maximum energy. That doesn't lead you to anything. So the right mindset with the long game is important. The second soft thing aspect is that I feel that for corporate purpose, first, I think a lot of it is incorporated or built into the company values. And the way I look at it is company values with corporate purpose at the center of it are like the roots of a tree. Essentially, it helps you to weather the changes of the different season and all the changes around us. But I think earlier, the other panel members said it differently. But essentially, corporate purpose, the values, anchor a company through all the changes and helps to hold things in place, right, while the changes are happening in a very uncertain world with many shifting priorities. I think that's really important. And we've seen that diverse companies generally do better in terms of business results. Personally, I've read studies from McKinsey that showed when they did a study of publicly listed companies in the United States, when they look at the ethnic and racial diversity of the management team, etc., generally speaking, when you compare to the average financial returns of other companies, they tend to do better. And we know that's a fact for us at HP. So those are the soft things. The hard things, I'll say, is that how we think differently and try to do things. We try to do one thing, which is create business impact networks in the countries that we operate. And we feel that it's a different way, but it helps to, for example, promote some of the diversity things that we speak about. So we have at HP what we call Business Impact Network, BINs, around women in leadership, where we get our women leaders, like-minded, to get together, share interests. We have the next generation employees, Young Employee Network, and we also have a pride group, because diversity is not about male, female only. It's about multi-generation. It's about beliefs as well. So for us, even pride, LGBTQ topics are important. And we welcome the diversity. And we know that because we have a diverse workforce, we are supporting it, we want to hear the ideas, and we are representative of the communities that we operate in, we're able to get better ideas and basically produce superior ideas and results over time. So those are some of the practical things that we've done.
Very good. And Kun Panote, your challenges specifically?
I would view the best change, if we're going to make the right effect, is the change from within. So the effort over the years is how we evolve our organization. And even though I'm looking at responsible of a smaller part of the bigger group of the family, we are 6,000 people employment of and over 80,000 people within the TCC group. I think the responsibility for me is to put the purpose and the value in every one of us, and allow us to embrace that and allow us to make the change we want to make within the societies. The challenge in part of what we discussed today on our topic as well is on the ecosystem, is that the change within real estate is just one connecting supply chain. So we are defining ourselves as part of the bricks and mortar, and we enhance ourselves as an operator to our physical real estate. And we built that model as where we want to drive better real estate as a service, and that connecting us to the further a lot more, and what we do as a real estate, we actually work with our partners, right? Our tenants is our partners, and our supply chain connect to a very broad base of action that we want to achieve our goals. So those things have to be outlined very clearly, but many things would need to come into support as well. A forum like this, the people that are in this room are making that connecting possible.
All right, thank you very much. In fact, Kun Panot's gone into what I intended to ask as the next question, which is how we affect players within our ecosystem. So I'm going to turn that question over to TC, right? Because he spoke about how he works with his channel partners, people like Challenger, on certain programs. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Sure, I'll be happy to. So once again, just to recap, for my company, 85% or more of our business moves through what we call channel partners. And channel partners operate across all segments, from consumer to SMB to enterprise. So there are different types. Most of our channel partners around the world are small, medium businesses. Some of them are big companies, but most of them are small companies. Over the years, they've made money, they've grown with us. But our thinking is like this, right? Over the last couple of years in particular, global events, I think all of our business partners understand this because they live it. When I go to Australia, the partners tell me we have the bushfires followed by the flood, right? And everywhere in the world is the same story. So they understand, they know. And essentially what we've done is use the scale of our business and the fact that we can do good and grow at the same time. So what HP has done is we sold our vision, we explained to our partners. They know that customers increasingly over time, starting with the developed countries, but now also in the emerging countries, are demanding and asking for purpose-led brands. And they want to represent brands like HP. So what we've done is to leverage that and launch an initiative some 2 years back where essentially in the old days for a company like ours, usually partners would go onto a program and you sell a certain volume of products, you get a rebate. We have now used that, but also included an element around sustainability. We've called our program Amplify Impact, and we realized that a lot of our partners understand, but they don't have the means to take that step forward because it's really difficult. So what HP has done is, in a nutshell, invested in an initiative where, one, we sell the vision, they get it. Two, we've got the products and solutions, they are sustainable, they understand. Third, we invested in assessments for them, paid assessments, where once you sign up, as long as you do a pledge with us, then we pay for the assessment. It's a professional assessment by a third-party company in terms of their capabilities and understanding of sustainability topic. And then after the assessment, depending on where they are, we actually invest for consultants to work with them to build a sustainability plan. And then HP provides the tools and training as well for them, the owners of the company and their employees, to basically build that plan and get knowledgeable. And then, of course, our hope is that we are moving the needle and they're able to sell with our sustainability solution along with themselves. And over time, then we also change the way we compensate, right? Meaning you get more rebates from us, bigger margins if you do this. Short term, are we making money from it? No, because it's an investment. But medium to long term, are we confident that we will win more in the market? For sure. So there are a lot of details behind it, and it's not easy. Our goal, we have more than 200,000 partners around the world, and every country has its journey. Here in Asia, I'm proud to say that we have anywhere from 20 to 35%, some countries higher, already signed up. Our goal is to hit 50% of our channel partners by 2025, which is a big number, right? And I think as the world turns and as we see more events happening around the world and customers are demanding, more and more of our partners are like, let me get on it and see, since I'm already selling the product, I have to make money. I understand what you're saying when you say I can do good and grow at the same time.
Oh, fantastic. Kun Panote, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question about your projects across the many countries and jurisdictions or regions, right? Is there, or have you found there to be, perhaps as a result of cultural differences, but also differences in terms of understanding of what corporate purpose should mean, or the readiness or willingness to put this into effect? And if those exist, if there are differences, how have you dealt with them?
It's definitely the challenge. It's definitely diverse, but that become, in my view, what we turn into positive energy. I think we use one of our core value as respect, as the part of understanding as well. How do we look in the inside of each other, and to diversities, to different leaps of innovation and progressive thinking. Our even our openness and diversity of genders and LGBT as well. Office building in London now that we opened up end of last year. All the commercial toilets are now called Superloo. It doesn't define gender anymore. It's just where you dare to use what you need to be dealt with. So it's in each different place it define different progressive of where they change their mindset and culture to be more open and inclusive. In different geographics is also a different issue. We dealt more in Australia to mental issue. And those are the issues that we seen as a problem within the local context. And they excel a lot more, and they guide other part of the business within the group as well to excel and anticipate those issues that could happen. So it become more of how we grown to learn from each other as a strength and a synergy. I view the challenge as we've seen of how we look to that doing good doesn't mean it's cost less. I think as TC mentioned, it's also to define true to ourselves of why we exist and why we do what we do. The part of what we believe, quite the big part of what is involved within real estate is part of the circular economy. It's part of what we do from beginning of development with our contractors. How do we manage better waste management? How do we source the waste before it go out of the construction site and know exactly where it's going? Once it's built, also, in the first site in Bangkok, because it's one of the largest mixed-use development that we do to date. It's a project called One Bangkok. We able to recycle the concrete pile that was cut off when you do the piling, and we able to use that volume to build one building. And it's a multi-purpose building within will be live entertainment hall that the size of about 8,000 square meters. We only be able to do that because we are working with the largest concrete producer in Thailand, SCG. And they see the potential of how we take progressive thinking and work together to show the example of how to manage waste. And the circular economy is something we both believe in. So we work together across many part of the process as well to see the improvement of that. In tenants, we also work together to better manage the waste as well. We are more and more, Singapore already doing it, but we are doing across different market now to making sure we manage the food waste and turn it into fertilizer and use it within our green space within the projects. So as food waste go out into its cost handling and the smell, the toxicity that could happen. So we are trying to manage on-site and optimize it. So those are the things of the example that we do.
That's really interesting, actually, because I was under the assumption, now obviously wrong, that you as the procurer, right, you're basically setting all the standards and saying, I want this to be done, all for, environmental purposes and so on and so forth, and you go out into the market and get a tender and people sort of sign up. But it sounds to me like it's pretty collaborative, right? You speak to your partners, the contractors, and they tell you what they can do, and sometimes even bring to the table things that you've not heard of. So you're helping to sort of work together and develop new standards even. So that's really, really fantastic. I love that.
Thank you.
We're closing in on time that I have left, 10 minutes left. I'm going to ask a question before going into the Q&A. In fact, I'm going to write on one of the questions from the audience, and it's a question about how governments and perhaps laws and policies could better enable the ecosystem to progress in terms of corporate purpose. So I want quick thoughts from both of you on what you would hope to see from governments, whether in Singapore or the region, what the agencies can do in terms of maybe implementing laws or regulations that would help push the corporate purpose and ESG agenda. Panote, why don't you go first?
Thank you, TC. I view it is important part as regulation help standardize the way all of us can put the effort in. And as I mentioned, many things we felt we want to take the leap as well to prove the concept. But many things, if we do it ourselves, it won't be competitive because we have responsibility to, especially as a listed company, to all stakeholders. And we have to allow ourselves to balance that well. That's the biggest challenge to any corporate enterprise, in my view. But that's where government can really come in and help and seeing its ways. But different countries also taking very progressive different initiatives. And Singapore has already led in many of the initiatives. So I say it is a challenge when we are in a multi-geographies, investing in a physical real estate. That government policy do make a big difference. But more to that is the government will only be able to facilitate it, the whole supply chain, the end-to-end, as seeing the end objective very clearly. So part of consider private sector, I think my role is also to connect better with our ecosystem and prove as well that we can do better and we can do things that's more sustainable and be proud to where we live in the society that we have to nurture and protect.
Thank you. TC, what about your space, where I think there's a lot happening actually, in terms of regulations covering electronic waste and so on and so forth. Can you elaborate on what you think?
Sure. I mean, cut a long story short, I think the global issues around climate change, human rights, and local community type topics cannot be solved by any corporation, any government, or any local community alone. That much I think we are clear. And so it will be solved by all three parties working together. I think we definitely see that. And in the Singapore context, for example, there are many topics that we have worked on that actually cuts across, for example, even within government, across different ministries, right? It starts with not just Ministry of Sustainability Environment, but also it could be trade, industry, Ministry of Education, etc., etc. It's an all-of-government approach to solve it, let alone involving private sector and community, which is much needed. So one concrete thing is, since I mentioned the smart factory as well as the sustainable manufacturing effort that HP has made, I'm proud to say that talking about government, local communities and all, here recently, in fact, I see Chin Siong here, we've worked with SIM to create, or rather to basically get ourselves qualified as a Queen Bee in Singapore for sustainable manufacturing, where because we are a leading practitioner of it, we have got ourselves qualified, we've worked with SIM to create a curriculum where HP use that as a platform to share with the Singapore ecosystem on how to approach sustainable manufacturing. So we've come to provide, with our expertise and academics from SIM, courses around how do we source sustainably, how do we design sustainably, and then how do we build a smart factory, just to share the knowledge, and that's one example of a company a local community education leader like SIM, and also with the government, Skills Future, coming together. And I think it is through an approach like this where we can take a more targeted approach, at some of these issues that we have, right? And I think that's where we can make a big difference.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. There are a couple of questions here which I think we may have covered a little bit on, examples of how we involve our various stakeholders in your journey of sustainability and how to get them aligned. You've done a lot of education, collaborative work, so all those bits covered there. Would you like to elaborate on any of those? If not, I'm going to ask, well, probably the most difficult question here. There was a question about the qualities that leaders need to have, right? Not just leaders of the future, but leaders of today, right? What qualities do we need to embody in order to drive the profit with purpose or corporate purpose agenda?
I think this is a really, really good question, because it's a question where, in fact, again, Chin Siong and I discussed this before as well, but really leaders of the future, especially for corporate purpose, the skill set that's needed is to have a global mindset, what we call systems leadership. The skills needed are able to get stakeholders from different ecosystems, from different silos to work together. It's not easy. For us in a big company, selecting our next generation of leaders is difficult because frequently we get leaders with high IQ but lower EQ, to be able to get people to work together. And leaders who are successful in the future must have that capability because, one, on the business front, we have very complex issue. But on this topic of corporate purpose, in order to move the needle and get different stakeholders to work together, I think this one skill set, this systems leadership, being able to get the whole big picture together and get different groups to collaborate is, I feel, among other things, one of the more important ones.
Great, and if you're wondering what systems leadership is about, Chin Siong is right there. You should broach it.
He's the expert.
Khun Panote, please.
Thank you. Cannot top that, but the view of what I see as well of the important part is definitely how do we drive and balance between profits and purpose. The view to me is purpose cannot be compromised, and profit will come. That's what I would view. Then the embedded value to me is that it doesn't build overnight, it built over time. And putting, purpose can always exist, but how do you put that into the DNA of your leaders? And how they stay true and walk the talk. So the journey of that is definitely the balance of what TC just mentioned is both EQ and IQ. And being the leader, you set the right example for people to follow. So the sense of that is what I felt lucky to see it from the young as well, of myself, to the groups, to my parents, and so I'm seeing the important to my journey is to set that through to the next generation and teach them early.
Wow, fantastic. I don't think that we're going to get answers that will top those two, so I'm going to stop asking any more questions. I'm going to end right there. I want to say, well, listening to everything that's been said, and particularly what our two panelists have just shared, I'm just reminded of a quote from Winston Churchill. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it goes something like this, right? He said, "It's not enough to do our best. Sometimes we have to do what is required." So I hope, with this, everyone who's participated in this gathering goes back inspired and motivated to do what we all know is really required, right? For the greater equitable good, purposefully and together. With that, thank you very much, and please, one big round of applause for our two panelists, Panote and TC. Thank you.